turned 18, my dad took me to a seminar. The guy's name was Ron LeGrand. It was one of those seminars you go to in Pittsburgh. It's in a hotel. They sell you this course for like $2,000 at the back of the room. I ended up buying that course, put it on a credit card because that was a ton of money for me. And it was all on how to buy real estate, like how to be a real estate investor. So I went out, marketed a little bit, found some people that wanted to sell their houses, and I failed.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Seven-Figure Journey podcast, where we will be discussing the struggles and lessons learned along the journey of a seven-figure entrepreneur. It's my great pleasure to welcome our guest today, Bryan Driscoll with Motivated Leads, LLC. Bryan, welcome to the call.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
You bet. We're excited to hear a little bit about you today. So without further ado, let's just dive right in. Bryan is a small business owner, as an entrepreneur. Please share with us your story. Where did you start from? Where have you gotten to? And maybe share a few key lessons learned along the way.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give you some of that. I'll give you the short version. So I grew up, I was a troublemaker, right? Like I used to get in a lot of trouble, almost dropped out of high school, stuff like that. Like a lot of entrepreneurs I hear. And then when I turned 18, my dad took me to a seminar. The guy's name was Ron LeGrand. It was one of those seminars you go to in Pittsburgh. It's in a hotel. They sell you this course for like $2,000 at the back of the room. I ended up buying that course, put it on a credit card because that was a ton of money for me. And it was all on how to buy real estate, like how to be a real estate investor. So I went out, marketed a little bit, found some people that wanted to sell their houses, and I failed. Like, just didn't work. I was just too green, maybe. I don't know what it was. So I failed at that. And then like years later, I came back to real estate. So what I did is I failed there. Then I went and got a job. I was working at a cable company. I was doing sales. I was one of the top guys in the US, making decent money. Interesting thing there is I was making more money than I should have been at like 20 years old. And it was actually bad for me. Like I ended up going to the bars and like, cause I was the guy that's like, hey, let's go out and get a limo. And so actually making money at that age actually hurt me. I learned some lessons, but I got in a lot of trouble too. But so about 10 years after that, like probably when I was 28, I got back into real estate. I saw an ad on Craigslist and there was a guy, he had a property in my neighborhood. He was a wholesaler. And he's like, hey, I got this property. It's a total junker if you want it. So I went and checked it out and I bought it. And what I did is I fixed it up. And I refinanced out of it. So it's called the BRRRR method, when you buy a property, fix it, and then get your cash back. And that was my first rental property. So the lessons I learned when I was 18, I actually kept them, even though I failed the first time, and got into real estate. At the same time when I was doing that, back in the early 2000s, I got into digital marketing. It was on a platform called Odesk that turned into Upwork. I don't know if you ever heard about it. Okay, so it's a freelance platform. And I was doing digital marketing for like $20 just freelancing. And I started getting busy, and that actually grew into an agency. So what I did was I had a digital marketing agency, and I was investing in real estate on the side. And about 3 years ago, I merged those two together into a company called Motivated Leads, which is where we generate leads on a national level for real estate investors. So that's kind of like the short story of where I'm at now.
Gotcha. Okay, so you kind of merged the two companies. What was your first thought? Where's this going to go?
Yeah, well, my first thought when I tested it out, I was testing it out with a buddy. I'm like, I just bought this rental property. I wonder if, because I had to pay a wholesaler fee. So, so I had to pay the fee. And I'm like, I wonder if I could just generate my own leads. Because I was doing digital marketing for like large national and e-commerce companies and like big companies. I'm like, I wonder if I could market just local in Pittsburgh, find my own houses, save the fees. And I crushed it. Like local marketing became fairly easy to me. That's when I started thinking, oh, there's got to be a need here. And then, and the other thing, I had a marketing agency. We're charging thousands of dollars per month per client. And if one client leaves, it's like, boy, that really stings. Like it would be way nicer to have more clients that are paying less money, but it's more stable of a business. So that's kind of what I was thinking there. And I really like marketing and real estate. I'm like, it's just fun, you know?
There you go. Awesome. So it started out just you, or early on, did you bring some people on? How did that look?
Yeah, so originally when I was just freelancing, it was me. And then I started bringing a couple guys on, like overseas guys, just to help out. That was when I was starting on Odesk and Upwork, and I was running a company. I called it Think Big Marketing. When we transitioned into Motivated Leads, one of my friends, he ran Facebook ads, and I did SEO. We always tossed business back and forth. So I pulled him on, and we partnered up on Motivated Leads to run that. So it was basically me and him hustling. And then we had like one guy that was doing design. And then we'd pull another person, and then we kind of grew that way. So it was like we're super bootstrapped. We started the company with like $2,000. That's it.
Wow, cool, very awesome.
Yeah, it was all hustle.
So how many total employees do you have now?
We have about 20 now.
Nice.
Yeah.
And some of those are still overseas, or everybody in house now?
Now, I'd say it's probably 50-50. We're 100% remote. So we have a lot of people down in Florida. We got some people in South Carolina. And then we have some people in the Philippines and Montenegro, like just different places like that too. I'd say probably 50-50. Depends on what the job role is.
Awesome. Very cool. So as you're going through, like you said, you're very bootstrapped. You start off by yourself, and you're trying to generate cash, and then you get some cash, and you're busy. So then you bring another person on, and you're playing the game. Um, what were some of the lessons that you learned along that path that you're like, oh man, if I would have learned this earlier, it would have been so much easier?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. So there's so many. Uh, Number one, I would say partnering up with people is number one. Like make sure whenever you're starting a business, make sure to spend the time and pull in the right people. Because right when we started, it's like, hey, you know what, we got a need. I'm hiring whoever, and I didn't really look at what the actual position was in the seat and what the person's profile was, or like what they like to do. And so I'd put the wrong person in the wrong seat, and I'd train them for 3 months, and I'd get frustrated. It's like, dude, you're not doing what we need to do. And then I find out, wait a minute, you're not even built for this position. You're built for something else. I did find predictive index. We started using that now when hiring people. It's like a profile thing. So that kind of helps me a little bit find out what people like. It's like I don't want to stick an analyzer in a sales role, for example. You know what I mean? They're more the data guy, you know. But that was a huge one. It's like slow down on the hiring process because I was impatient. I'm like, this is fun. We got to get someone. I got to get some time back. And I'd hire someone real quick. And I'm like, it hurt, you know. And I
Yeah.
don't like firing people because then sometimes you have to let people go.
Yeah, exactly. No, a lot of times, as small business owners, we think, oh, I'm going to buy and I need more people, and then we just start throwing bodies at a problem, and then, like you said, that ends up hurting us more in the long run than, okay, well, if I'm a little bit slower in the process, make sure I get the right body in the right position. No, I love your intentionality there. That's fantastic.
Yeah. You know what? Something else in addition on that too that I learned just popped in my head is spending the time. It's like when I have an employee and I want them to do the task, spend the time and actually instruct them. Like tell them here's exactly what I'm looking for. Because I found before I'm like, hey, just do this. In my head, I know what I want, but looking at it from their side, they're like, they don't know what I want. And then they give me back something else and I get frustrated. It's like, spend that first 10% of the time really sitting down and explaining it, then go have them do like 80% of the work and then bring it back and we spend 10% of the time again. But that first thing, it's like really detail out. Here's my expectations on what I need.
Yeah, no, I love that clarity that you provided. So I love this quote. It's called "Clarity is kindness." and it's something that I teach all the business owners that I work with, because yeah, by taking that opportunity to really explain that, you know, good data in, good data out, right? So you provide clarity and alignment to what you want ahead of time, and then you're redirecting at the end. I love your concept there of 10%, 80%, 10%, because then you're giving them the opportunity to do the work, but you're directing in a way that is allowing them to understand, oh, okay, now when I come into work, I know what it looks like to win, because
Yep.
Brian's clearly laid out for me exactly what he wants. And so I can go and I can do this on a day in and day out process. No, I love the intentionality there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Sweet. So if I were a small business owner and I'm thinking, hey, I'm loving what I'm hearing here with Brian. Um, I want to get into this type of thing. What what would you tell somebody that was trying to maybe merge into something similar to what you're doing today? What's something that you've learned that you're like, ooh, had I done it this way when I first got in, it would have made things a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would number one say make sure you have thick skin because
There
it's
you
gonna
go.
hurt. It's going to hurt. You know, looking back on it, I would say that main thing is I talk to a lot of people. They want to get into business, and there's two different types of people. First is the people that want to get in and they just jump in prematurely and quit their job and just hope that they make money, and that's not really that good. But then there's most of the people I talk to that are like, that looks really awesome. How do I do it? But they get held up in the constant thinking. It's like a cycle. It's like, oh, I need to learn more before I can do it. So I would tell them, take the first step. It's like once you take, because you're going to get held up in your head. It's like, oh, I got to, like if you're getting into real estate, for example, I got to get into real estate. Well, now I need to figure out how to wholesale. But wait, now I need to figure out how to flip it too, because people say you got to do both. Wait, now I need to get my real estate license. It's like, don't get held up on that. Go find a credible source, like to find out the actual logistics, but then do it. Like if you're going to get into real estate, go find beat up houses and knock on their door. You might fail, but it's at least getting you doing something, and then you'll learn what doesn't work, and it's going to put you on a trajectory of taking action versus just sitting and keep reading books. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, no, I love that. You're saying, hey guys, just go do, then
Yep.
learn, and then that gets you set up for the right process going forward. I love your intentionality around saying, hey, we need to get ourselves set up to be in this process of, hey, I'm going to take action. I'm going to actually do something. I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to adjust, and then I'm going to take action again. And it's this constant cycle that as we do that, that's how we're going to see growth. That's how we're going to get momentum. Because I love what you said there. If we sit and analyze it too much and we're thinking it, nothing's going to happen. We're just going to sit there and think ourselves into a corner and then scare ourselves, and we're not ever actually going to take any action, right? So love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's where the thick skin comes too. It's like you got to have the thick skin, because taking action, you're going to keep failing.
Yeah,
but you don't look at it as failing. It's like, okay, I tried that, it didn't work. I'm better off than if I didn't try it. Now I know something different, and then you keep repeating.
Yeah. Well, Thomas Edison, light bulb, right? Perfect example. He told everybody, hey, I didn't fail 100 times. I just learned 100 times how not to make a light bulb.
Yep.
Right. So just continuing on that path. No, I love that. And I hope everybody who's listening to this episode is really paying attention here, because what Bryan is saying is absolute gold, right? This is a golden nugget you need to take. Take action. Don't just think about these things and go, that might work. No, dive in, take action, and don't be afraid for it not to work out, because that's how we learn. That's how we grow. No, I love that. Fantastic. All right. So, Bryan, as you continue to strive to be the leader that you want to be, and you're building this team, what's something that you're dealing with real time we can have a conversation about?
I'll tell you what, being a leader is tough. We can talk about that. Like, so I'm a normal guy, right? I started a business. I did well. I buy real estate. Now I have like 20 people working for me. It's like, okay, you can either delegate, like you can either work with them, you can micromanage, or you can work with people, right? So, and I was always the micromanager, because when I first started too, I worked with some overseas people, and a lot of times you have to like give them one task, micromanage it, and give them the other. So that was a growing pain thing that I had. It's like, okay, I need to, number one, get more bandwidth, quit micromanaging, and actually lead. So, and I'm still dealing with that. It's like, it's never going to stop,
Right. Well, all of us, right? It's a continuing process. So yeah, I like to think of that in this. So here at Elite, we have some methodology that we think of it this way: is we say, hey, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, you were really passionate and good at something. You did what everybody does when they first start a business. You said, God, there's got to be a need here. You saw something, you did it, it worked, and you're like, I've got to be able to replicate this, make it repeatable, and help some folks out, right? So you are really passionate about that. You're good at it. You start doing this. But what you realized is, I can't be a doer and work in the business. I have to lead and transition over here, and I have to start working on the business and quit getting sucked in and working in the business. Does that sound familiar?
100%.
Yeah. So how do we do that? Well, what it is we have to intentionally switch gears, and we have to say, okay, I have to stop being a doer, and now I need to be a leader, and I need to start leading these people. And what that does is that means, hey, I have to go through this process of intentionally taking time to bring somebody along with me. Instead of just doing a task, now I'm grabbing somebody and saying, hey, come watch me do this task. And then the next time it's, hey, come do this. I'm going to watch you. We're going to switch roles. And then it's, okay, go do that. That's one more thing off my plate. I gain a little bit of more bandwidth. And now I've got a more valuable, loyal employee, because this employee says, oh, Bryan took time. He cares about me. He saw me. He helped me learn this thing. Now he's trusting me to make sure that I keep doing this and I keep moving forward. So that's that switch, or that transition of a doer versus a leader. And then you're going to get to a point where then you need to become a leader of leaders. And you need to start taking a few of your people on your team and saying, okay, now I'm going to transition you to be a leader. And you're going to start doing what I'm doing for you. You're going to start doing that with the rest of the team. And you're going to start taking opportunities to shadow leadership style with them. And you're going to bring them along. You're going to show them what you're doing. Then you're going to let them do it. You're going to switch roles and you're going to keep doing that. So one way that we look at this is we say, okay, best way to build our leadership team from our regular team so that we can then have the daily operational needs of the company continue to move forward, so we can step aside from that and start working on the long-term strategic needs of the company, right? Determining, hey, where do we need to be in the next 3, 4, or 5 years, and how are we going to get there, and what do we need to grow and adapt to be able to successfully make it to that destination. So one way is we say, okay, let's grab and create an org chart. What does our company look like today? So then we don't put any names in it. We just look at just roles. Say, okay, we got owner, CEO, and then we've got, sales, and we've got marketing, and we've got operations, and what does that look like, and what roles are we actually utilizing today? Then you take your staff and you say, okay, let's start putting some names in here. And quickly you're going to realize, including yourself, there's a lot of different people whose names show up there multiple times, right? Small business, we wear multiple hats. So you're putting Bryan here, and you're putting Bryan here, and you're putting Bryan here. You're like, oh geez, man, I do a lot of this stuff. You're putting your name everywhere, and then you're taking your team and you're doing the same thing with them, and you're realizing really quickly that there's a lot of guys on your team are probably doing multiple things too. So you're sticking their names. Then you take that org chart, you set it to the side, then you do another org chart, which is a future org chart. So we have this thing called the elite model. It's the elite growth method for growing your business. It's a mountain, and at the top of the mountain, you have your vision. So we look at vision as purpose, values, and mission goals. So your purpose is your why you do what you do. Your values is who you are and how you show up each day. And then your mission, that's your destination. That's where you're going to go. And that's the thing you're going to go accomplish as a team with your company. You're going to say, hey, we're going to go do this thing. And we're going to arrive there. And we're going to set a clear date in the next 3, 4, or 5 years from now of when we're going to arrive at this destination. Then your mission goals, that's your set of metrics to ensure that you've arrived, right? So once you have that established mission, now you know this destination. So now you can say, okay, I'm going to create this future org chart. What does my team look like? What do we as a company look like once we've reached our destination? So I'm going to start adding all these things, right? Well, if I want to see 3x or 5x in growth, what does that look like? Does that mean I need a couple more sales guys? I need a couple marketing guys. I need a couple more operations people, whatever that looks like. I'm going to add those. Again, not adding names. I'm just adding roles. I'm going to create this future org chart. Okay. Once I've created that future org chart, now I have a roadmap of who I need to hire and when. Because now I can just do a quick, easy, simple math problem. And I can say, hey, this is where we are today. I have this org chart. This is where we are today. Now I have this future org chart. Well, in order to reach this destination, what do I need to do? What seats need to be occupied? Who needs to be switched over? I've got this guy. He's doing 3 or 4 things right now on his plate. Well, I need to grow. And in each of those areas, I need to have 2 or 3 more people. Well, that's not going to work for him to wear those hats anymore. He needs to just wear one because he's going to have 2 or 3 people under him. So I need to intentionally start taking things off his plate and bringing somebody on. So now I've got this roadmap of, okay, now I know in the next year, what does it need to look like so that I'm on the right trajectory to be able to hit this destination in, year 3. So then I can start slowly bringing these people on. And what you're doing there is you're establishing who's going to be a leader in your company. Which person are you going to move up and put over these next new people that you're going to be bringing in? Okay. And then the next step for you to ensure that you're closing this gap of being from a doer to a leader is then you're going to start doing what we call meeting rhythms. So you have your long-term strategic here on one side, and then you have your operational needs on the other side. Operational needs are imperative. That's the life support of your company, right? You've created this machine and it's awesome. Congratulations, right? What got you here isn't necessarily going to get you to your next destination. So this machine now needs to be modified. It needs to be adapted. You know, you need to add stuff to it, whatever, so that you can reach your next destination. So that's this long-term strategic thoughts, right? That's where you work into your strategy and say, okay, what strengths do I have currently today that I need to leverage? And what strengths do I need to go out and develop so that I can continue to serve my targeted customer, right? My ideal client. What do I need to do to make sure that I'm still staying relevant in their eyes, so I can go after and I can see the growth that I want? Or maybe it's, hey, I want to try in a different market that I haven't tried today, or I want to try a different funnel, right? Whatever it is, strategically, now you have this set aside on this side, but this operational stuff still needs to happen. So your meeting rhythms, that's what balances. So that goes across the bottom and that acts as your bouncer so that you can determine, okay, how do I make sure that this doesn't fall by the wayside? We're still doing the daily, but that I still intentionally have time set aside to do the strategic. So the first thing you do is you start doing one-on-ones. Well, what's a one-on-one? A one-on-one means that on a weekly basis, I'm going to take 30 minutes with every person on my team. Well, wait, hold on, John. I've got a team of 20. That's not going to happen, right? That's way too much. You're right. You don't want to do more than about 5 or 6 max. Okay. So now your job, Brian, is to go through your company and say, okay, who can I utilize in my company to be in a leadership role? Who on my team today do I want to bring along with me and help me build my future company? Okay. That's who I'm going to start grooming and developing and building up to become my leaders. I'm going to take those people and they're going to start doing some one-on-ones with some other people for me. So I'm going to take 5 people. I'm going to start doing one-on-ones with them. Well, what's a one-on-one? What does that look like? It's 30 minutes. The first 15 minutes is all about them. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to ask you about your personal life. I'm going to ask you about your hopes and your dreams. You know, what do you see yourself doing in the next 1, 2, 3 years from now? Both personal and professional. You know, what are your hopes and dreams here at my company? Where do you see yourself in the next 1, 2, 3 years from now? Right? You do real personal in the first 15 minutes. Then the next 15 minutes is all about their performance. So then you're going to establish what we call big threes. A lot of people refer to them as KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. What are the 3 most critical things needed for the success of your role? What you're doing right now in that role that you occupy. Now, big threes are set up not by the individual. Big threes are set up by the role. So I'm going to establish big threes for each of the roles in the company. Then I'm going to put people in those roles, right? So I'm going to determine what are the 3 most critical things needed for the success of this role. Then in that one-on-one, that last 15 minutes is all about them reporting back to me. Hey, how are you doing? What help do you need? Are you running into any walls? Is there anything that's not working? Do you need added support? Right? As a leader, it's my job to ensure that you have everything necessary for you to be able to be a win. You can't win unless you have everything needed to be successful. That's my job. I'm going to make sure that you have that. So in that one-on-one, you're doing 2 things. You're letting them become a loyal employee by showing them that you care about them and that you see them and you hear them. Number 2, you're giving them an opportunity to return a report. So you're creating some accountability for them. So now, hey, you're going to be held accountable for the things that you do on a daily basis. And it's going to be clear and evident what it looks like to win in your role on each and every day. Now, if somebody's knocked out of the park and killing it on their big threes, that's evidence that, hey, maybe this person's somebody I want to help with this strategic stuff. But I don't ever want to pull somebody from my team to come help me with this long-term strategic stuff unless they're killing it on their big threes. Because if they're not winning in their role on a day-to-day basis, I want to leave them alone. I want to keep on helping them and building them and helping grow them into that role, but I'm not going to add anything else on their plate. So they're not going to come help me with this strategic work. So that's what those beating rhythms do. You're going to clearly and intentionally set aside time to work on all the things you need to do, your operational needs and your long-term strategic. So we're going to take time to talk about, where are we going to go? So you're going to have an annual planning meeting. You're going to have quarterly planning meetings. You're going to set up annual priorities, things you're going to work on and accomplish by the end of the year. You're going to set up quarterly priorities. And within those priorities, you're going to establish a list of smarts, tasks that need to be accomplished in order for you to achieve that priority. You're going to intentionally set aside time to do those meetings. And then you're going to set aside time on a weekly, quarterly, and monthly basis to talk about that. Make sure that that work is still happening. You're also going to make sure you're doing daily, weekly, monthly meetings on your operational side. Make sure your operational needs are still being taken care of and the business is still moving forward and working. So as a leader, you have 3 jobs. And that's where the cycle happens. We call it the elite leadership model. As a leader, you have 3 jobs. Set the vision. Make sure everybody on your team understands why you do what you do, what it looks like, and who you are as a team member on this. As a team here in my company, at Motivated Leads, this is who we are and how we show up each and every time. And guess what, guys? We have this cool thing we're going to go do as a team, and we're going to make it to this destination. We're going to go do that together, right? So that's setting the vision. Then you got to build the team. So that's doing exactly what we already discussed about, these things you've already learned, right? Being intentional about who we're bringing on, making sure we're putting them in the right seat, make sure we're setting them up for success by establishing these big 3 so we have clear alignment for them. They understand what it looks like to win and how what they do on a daily basis affects the team's ability to reach this destination, right? So you're going to build the team and then you're going to deliver results. Now, a lot of people get hung up on this one. They say, okay, so as the leader, as the owner, I have to do everything? No. Delivering results means that you're setting your team up for success. You're giving them everything that they need to be successful, and then you're holding them accountable to it to ensure that the work's getting done. That's how you're delivering those results, right? And then you're going out and you're continuing to work on the business. So you're finding new things that you need to go after. You're being intentional about the strengths that you have that you need to leverage, and you're leveraging those strengths. And you're saying, okay, what strengths do we need to develop? And then you're figuring out what it's going to take to develop those and then make that part of your daily operational excellence, right? Ensuring that that's taking place. All of that, setting the vision, building team, delivering results, at the center of that is care. 2 things. You got to care about the person, and you got to care about what it is you're going to go accomplish. As long as you're caring about that, it kind of ties everything back together. Brian, that's how you're going to transition from being a doer to being a leader, and then eventually being a leader of leaders. Because then what you do is you go through this whole cycle that you just went through to create yourself as a leader, and then you're going to do that with all of your leaders. And that's how you're going to become a leader of leaders. And then they're going to keep running this machine. And you're going to be over here focusing on, okay, how do we make this machine better? Maybe we're going to add a turbo. Maybe we're going to add, a bigger fuel tank so that it can drive longer. Maybe we're going to add a new suspension so that it can withstand the bumps that we're going to establish along the way as we keep going down this road, right? As you do that, that's how you're going to be intentional about it. That's how you're going to be able to successfully start creating that bandwidth that you need to go and grow and develop and see the growth that you want. So I just threw a lot of stuff at you. I apologize. Fire hose style.
That's how I like it.
So what are your thoughts? Tell me.
Yeah, basically, I'm looking at that, and I'm 100% with you because that's where I'm at right now. And instead of doing everything yourself, kind of building a machine that can help you. So, because you figure you only have so many hours in a day.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think most people, when they're an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, working 8 hours a day. So I'm going to go work 16 hours a day now to make less money for a while. So it's like, okay, you got into that habit of hustle. And that now it's like, okay, now I need to replicate myself in different areas to scale.
Yep.
So 100% with you on that one. And the thing that the problem I've realized when doing that too, 80%, I've found if I can have somebody else do it 80% as good as me, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Which I normally didn't in the past. It's like, no one's going to do it as good as me. I had control issues. It's like, I just got to do everything. And it's like, you have to take a step back and you're like, if someone can do it almost as good, but you can have 10 of those people doing things, you're pretty good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's not really that you were a control freak. It's you created this company. It's your baby. And so yeah, you're like, well, no, I want to make sure I'm doing the best things possible for this company because it's mine. It's my baby. And it's understanding, yes, but it's okay to let go. And I love your intentionality around, but 80% is okay. And it's okay if you do things differently than I did them, because guess what? Maybe you'll find a better way to do it.
Right.
I found a really good way and I've grown it and I've created this awesome company because I figured this out. But that doesn't mean that you can't figure out a way to make it better and better and better. And as you start to have that trust in those that you're building this company with and these team members, man, it's awesome what you see. I was talking to a business owner this one time. He loved sales and he built his whole business. He had a SaaS company, built his whole business around sales and how he was just awesome. And he could go out and he could sell anything to anybody. And he got to a point where he couldn't grow anymore because he couldn't sell anymore. There wasn't enough time in the day for him to sell anymore. And he's like, well, this isn't sustainable. How am I going to grow? And he had the same issue. He's like, but I can't. They're not going to sell as good as I am. And it's going to take like 5 of them to get the number of sales that man. And he struggled with that. And then as soon as he realized, okay, I got to let go. I'm going to bring on some sales guys. He brought on 5 guys. He said all 5 of them within the first 6 months were selling more than he ever did. He's like, oh man, why did I do this sooner? And so not only was it that, hey, this concept of if all 5 of them were doing 80% of what I was doing, they'd still be doing more than me. No, they were doing like 120% of what he was doing. And he had 5 of them. And he's like, oh, geez. Yeah, that was a mistake. I should have done this a long time ago. Because, he was able to just slowly let go. And it's hard. It is. And every business owner I've talked to, it's not an easy, it's uncomfortable because you really do. You care about your business. You built this thing. It's your baby. But it's okay. You just let it go a little bit at a time and you allow them. You have to get to a point. I love your intentionality about this, Bryan. You said it spot on. You have to get yourself to a point where you're okay with them not doing it as good as you or not doing it the same as you. As long as they're getting those results, and you have to just get to a place where you're like, okay, I'm okay with that. It's going to be all right. So love that. Perfect. Well, Bryan, thank you again so much for joining us on the podcast today. I love these lessons learned that you shared with us today. Guys, for those of you who are listening, I hope you paid attention. And then I hope you paid attention specifically to the one lesson he learned. Go out there and take action. So if you've heard something today that you're like, man, that's what I got to do. I love that. Take action on it. I promise you're not going to be disappointed in the results. Even if it doesn't end up the way you thought it was, you're going to learn from it and it's going to help you grow and be better. And on the flip side, things are going to continue to be where you want them to be. So take action today. Don't just sit on it. Well, Bryan, for those who are listening on, if you want to get a hold of Bryan, you love what you hear about Motivated Leads and him and his team. Bryan, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Best way to reach out, you can check me out on LinkedIn, Bryan with a Y, Driscoll, or our website's motivatedleads.com. So you can reach out there as well.
Awesome. You're doing great things. I hope that you guys have great success continuing forward. And as always, if you heard something today on the episode, for those who are listening in, that you're like, hey, I know somebody that could really benefit from this, then take action on that. Share this episode with them. Let's create as much value with as many people as we can. Well, that concludes this episode of the 7-Figure Journey podcast. Till next time, Bryan, again, thank you for everything that you've done today and for sharing it. And everybody else, take care.
Thanks for having me on.